My name is Polly Ferrell Belford.
My name is Frances Ferrell Braddock.
I was born in Union County, July the 4th, 1946.
I was born in New Albany, Mississippi. It's in Union County, July the 13th, 1947.
The community was Zion Chapel. I was born at home.
I was born in Zion Chapel. It was a home birth. My mother's name was Mary Ann Piggies Ferrell. My father's name was Verner. And my brother's was Charles Edward Ferrell and Homer Ferrell.
And are all of your siblings still alive today?
All but one, Betty Ferrell.
We had other family members that lived nearby. We had an uncle and his family. As a matter of fact, we had two uncles, Elmer and Jasper Ferrell, and their families.
They lived across the road from us, and they lived up the street from us. Mr. Jasper Carruthers and his wife and family. And across the road from them was Pickens. I don't know the first name, but they was a white family. And my mother was real kind to them, and Miss Pickens was real kind to her.
Okay.
We loved each other. They wasn't from this area. They was from Lafayette County in Oxford. They come from Lafayette County, and they moved to New Albany.
My grandfather was a sharecropper, and then Aisha developed there. And then somehow or another, he purchased property in New Albany in Union County from the Lafayette, and he moved here. And that's how we ended up here.
My father was a sharecropper, and he worked for other people. Later on in life, he was a garbage pickup man, and then he worked for Pipers in New Albany on up 15.
Daddy was in his 60s. I think Homer said he was 68 yesterday. We looked at an old Bible, which was quite interesting, and it documented when our grandparents died, our mother, and a lot of history, family history. So Daddy lived a full life, considering the fact that he was a smoker. He always attributed his death to smoking. Our mother died quite young. As a matter of fact, according to the Bible, she was 45. And so I had asked her aunt, her baby sister, they raised her also, what caused mother's death so early? And she said as a young girl she had contracted, I think it was rheumatic fever, wasn't it? And so that caused her to have an enlarged heart and severe high blood pressure. So she was quite young. She was 45.
When she passed, before she passed, I was the caretaker, and I took care of her, and it was, when I think about it now, it kind of brings tears to my eyes because I missed out on some things, because I love my mother so much, and she was so good to us, and my father too, that I missed some schooling but I went on and got my degree, my diploma from high school. I was a caretaker. A lot of time I would stay home, and Daddy would want me to stay home and take care of mother while he went and worked on the farm.
How old were you then when your mom passed away?
I was 14. 14.
Do you remember what your parents were like?
Oh, they were so loving, caring, protecting, and got us what we needed. And my mother, she was really, really disciplined because she didn't want us to get out of line. And after she passed at an early age, and us being so young, Daddy took the reins. And when she died, he come home that night and said that, well, girls and boys, I'm going to be your mother and your father. And he was a great man, disciplined, and he went by the book. I was the one that reported to Daddy.
She reported her.
I reported to Daddy, and Daddy took care of it. That's all I had to do is say the word, and Daddy would take care of it.
I was telling her this morning, she lived to report. Kept me in trouble. In trouble.
Y'all are very close in age. You're only, what, y'all are just 1 year apart?
Yes.
Oh.
We're almost a year apart.
Yeah.
What is it, 9 months?
About 9 months.
That couldn't wait syndrome.
She was the tough one.
Yeah. She was so close to your age, it was she was probably hard to
obey.
Mm-hmm.
Zion Chapel is out 30 going towards Oxford.
Okay.
And that's where I got saved at the church at Zion. It's still called Zion Chapel Baptist Church. And it's a beautiful church out there now. And we went to school out there. They had a school out there too. And when I was young, I guess I was 5 or 6 or 7. When I started the school, I was, I think I was about 5. And Mother would walk us to school. We had to walk to school. It was just a loving thing to have family all around you. And we enjoyed everything. It was just so nice.
You want to know about our church experience? Mm-hmm. It was quite enjoyable because we would get to see pretty much all of the family members and the people in the neighborhood. And my mother was the real churchy one. My father would go, but he would go to visit the guys outside. But we always had to go in. Mother was very churchy. So we grew up in the church. And, you know, it saved us. It saved us. And I have nothing to negative to say about it. My father had inherited his non-religious attitude from my grandfather. My fondest memory of my grandfather is when he wanted to visit. He never would come on the inside because most of the time he didn't wear shoes. And he would have on his overalls. I never saw him dressed up in my life. And he always toted a stick with a bandana. I don't know what was in that handkerchief. I often wondered since I got grown, what did Grandpa have? But they would say his name was Jeff Ferrell, Mr. Jeff outside. And then my aunt, one of my daddy's brothers, his family would embrace us Cause her niece was, what was Aunt Samela to Miss Osea? Sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would always get to go over to her house and have treats after church. It was just family oriented. And for a long time, the church stayed built around family, because nearly everybody was related back then. Occasionally, it would be a few outsiders that moved in other than family members. And children today, they don't get to know that feeling, that protected feeling, where everybody is your relative and everybody watching your back. And if you don't get it together, they're going to tell on you.
And they could spank you.
We couldn't get away with much at all.
And back, and back to my grandfather, he didn't like to work in the field because he was herbal. He would go dig herbs in the woods and make medicine out of it. And people would come from afar off to get that medicine that he made out of herbs that he dug roots up out of the ground. And, you know, I thought that was all for him out there digging earth. But they said that medicine, the people would say the medicine would help them, you know, like if they had arthritis or something like that. But my grandmother, when I was a baby, I was born, she would always tell me that you almost died. And Grandma came and told her that she wasn't getting enough nutrition and stuff for her milk to nurse me. And Grandma came, Grandma Evie, what's her? Evie Chapman Ferrell. She came and told Mother that her milk wasn't no good. And so they had to put me on pet milk. Of course, my aunt, she's gone and in heaven now. She said, that's on Mother's side, she said, you'll always be my baby because I nursed you back to health. She had a daughter about the same, a little older than me. And she would, she said, she nursed me back to health. And that's why I'm here today. Luella Piggy's Ezel.
That was your mother's sister?
Mother's sister. You know, back then, we would get an almanac and stuff. He may have read it. He could read and write. Because that's all he did. He wouldn't go to the field. He would sit there with his leg crossed and his feet would reach to the floor when he crossed his leg. He was real nice. And he had a peach orchard. One thing he did, my grandfather, he was an entrepreneur. He had peach trees, plum trees, and pear trees on his farm. That's after he got his farm. He would raise all kind of fruit, cherry trees, and they would be just full of fruit and stuff. And I think he sold some of that stuff. I know I enjoyed it. I would slip off out there in his peach trees and get me a peach off the tree. When I would get to go over there, when Daddy would take us over there.
How far away did your grandparents live from your house?
It was
probably 10 miles or more.
Probably, but it was a shortcut. Grandpa found a shortcut to our house, so it probably was about 4 or 5 miles. Okay. The shortcut. Daddy had a car. I remember it real well. It was a black, what was it, Chevrolet? Something. And it was real shiny, real pretty. We moved to another farm down on Braden Road.
Okay.
where the nursing home is now.
Okay.
That's where we live. And then we moved again, you know.
Where did you move the next time?
What they call it? Bodock Road. On Bodock Road. I think I was 7 or 8.
Okay.
I think I was 9th grade. That because I never was in, you know, a lower grade. When they incorporated all of the county schools into BF Hort, I went into the 9th grade.
Did you stay in the Zion Chapel school until BF Ford, or was there another school?
It was another school.
Do you remember what that was called?
St. Mary.
That was when you were on Bratton Road? Were you close?
Yeah, yes.
I remember it was a lady named Miss Ethel May Hill. She had a nice store on, wasn't it Oak Street?
Oak Street.
And then, what's that Gibson man name?
Aurelius Gibson.
Huh?
Aurelius
Gibson. He had a business which consisted of a barbershop type eatery. And then there was another lady, Miss Fanny. She had a nice little eating establishment. And then in the area where we call the flat, it was another gentleman, Bud Turner. He had a place, a recreational place, not for teenagers. Sometimes we would slip there. But he had it. And my daddy said, don't go down in the flat. Sometimes that's the wrong thing to tell teenagers. That just piques their curiosity. That make them want to go more. And then Miss Mary Howell, she had a motel establishment where she rented rooms and served food. There were quite a few black businesses, yeah, when we moved to that area. But we lived on the other side of town. And my daddy, he didn't, he would tell us there's certain kids, you know, y'all don't need to hang with. Don't go there. Don't go down in the flat. Don't go down in the dump. And where else did he tell us not to go? And that's where we would try to go. That's where I would try to. Curiosity. I was a very imaginative child and curious.
Yes.
It was a good thing in a way. You know, you have some children going to be more independent than the other. And if you said, the bird is flying, well, why is it flying? And I used to drive my mother crazy with my imagination. Trains flying, all kind of stuff. Girl, come in this house and stop that. But, you know, life was good as a child. We never went hungry. Our daddy was an excellent provider after. He had always been an excellent provider. So our childhood was really good. But they had, when my daddy, I love to tell this story, the farm that my brother and them, they live on now. My 2 uncles saw the need to shift it to them in order to let it stay a few more generations within the family. I like to tell this story because it harmonized with a chapter in the Bible. I think it's Boaz and Ruth, how they met. My dad, he lived in the neighborhood. And so my mother was out in this field gleaning, scrapping food for her and the children. My grandmother died in birth. And so my daddy would go by, he was scoping it, you know he was. And she would be out there at the house and in the field scrapping what other people left behind. And my dad, he worked in the Delta. And so when he would come home on the weekend, he would be checking her out. And so he got enticed to the point he just went over. And what you doing out here with all these children? Because she had inherited, how many was it, 4 or 5?
Her brothers and sisters.
She had inherited her brothers and sisters from her mom and her dad. And every weekend when my dad would come home with his money, he would go by and ask her, do you need anything? Mm-hmm. And he would go to the store, she said, and come back. My mother loved my daddy to death for this. And this story will remain with me, I think, the rest of my life. He would come back with so much stuff he couldn't hardly carry it for her and them babies. And that's the kind of parents that we inherited, generous, kind-hearted people. And so I have tried to keep that as a part of my life, to remember that story, and I've told it to my kids. It's not what you had, it's the sharing of it and the memories that you inherited. So as a result of our uncles and our family, I guess Dad and them was taught basically the same thing, share what you got. And that's the way we are. All 4 of us have never been split up, no more than the time when I left home at 19. I left home when I was 19 because I thought my father, he clamping me too tight. So I had to go. And in those years, I learned more than he could have taught me, and I don't know how many. And so a lot of times, the lessons we buy is better. They harder, though, than the ones we are taught. We had a good family life. We had a good life at B.L. Ford, but B.L. Ford had to go forward due to progress of the nations, and it was a blessing because my brother, Charles, he didn't go to B.L. Ford at all, but my brother, my oldest brother, he only went 2 years, then he graduated and got drafted into the military. B.L. Ford was a good school, in its day, but it came time to go forward, progress, and that's what it did, and we are glad. I often think that I would have pursued something else had we been exposed to a better educational environment, but who's to say? My life has been good, and I married a good man from Union County, Tipper, and our life was good. I'm very blessed and very thankful every day. Because if my dad hadn't been a firm disciplinarian and my mother, I probably would have got on the wrong track. So I'm very grateful. I don't have like criminal records, no all of that baggage following me in my older years. I'm quite grateful. And I thank God every day. And I thank all the people that made me the woman that I am. I told my niece and my sister, I'm going to participate in that interview. Because I never know, I got 3 great-grandboys, and like when I told my daughter in education, she said, Mama, that's a great thing you're doing, because history is a lot of time helps us to thrive and deal with the daily.
It's just amazing what you can learn when you come in here and see different things, that you didn't know. And Sam Mosley, he's just great, He helped the young peoples and talked to the young peoples, and it's just exciting. It's an exciting time for me. Of course, when I was going to Ford School, it was exciting. I got to be with my friends, and we were at lunchtime. We were standing outside the building and talk and play, patty cake, you know how girls do. Skip to the, skip to Malou, or what it is. And we would do all of those things together, and we just I enjoyed being at Ford. If I had to do it again, I would do it again, over and over again. But I'm glad for the change, because God wants us to be together. He wouldn't have put us here on earth if he didn't want us all to exist together and love one another. He didn't want us to be divided. He wants us to be together. White man, black man, red man. He wants us to live together. If he didn't, he wouldn't have put us here on earth together.
How did you get to school?
We rode the school bus.
Okay.
And my uncle was the driver.
Bus driver.
Uncle Elmer Ferrell. And we would, that's when we lived on Bodart Road. We would catch the bus out there in the front of our house. We had to walk by foot from here to that front door up there. And he would sit out there. Sometimes he would blow and blow, and we would be running, trying to get on the bus. That's when, on the days that I got to go to school when I wasn't taking care of Mother.
Do you remember any of your teachers at B.F. Ford?
Camilla Kennedy, Regis Gibson. She more
In school, they call me easygoing, because, you know, you leave me alone, I leave. So my teachers, since my daughter is a teacher, I've asked her to explain a lot to me. Why do teachers seem to, you know, want to push you so hard? The teachers saw my potential, and I wasn't acting on it. And so one teacher I had was Miss Kennedy. What was her? Camilla. And Miss Gibson. What was Miss Gibson's name? Bluebird? Yeah, and then Mary Howe. Oh, she used to ride my case. And John Jordan.
Yeah.
I couldn't do enough in biology and science. So one time, I was not going to participate. I hated, you know, animals, worms, frogs, snakes, whatever. I told Daddy, I said, I ain't going to school today. I don't have nothing for biology. My daddy went outside. Right up under our steps was a baby snake. Daddy caught that snake. I took it to school for biology. And they dissected it. At the time, we was dissecting, you know, worms, whatever. I didn't want to participate in the class, so I did. Yeah, cats.
Frogs.
But, you know, all of that had to occur for different reasons, scientific, medical for us.
Right.
And so the Ferrell side was very high on education. Like she said, my uncle used to sit outside in the bus, and he knew we didn't want to come out, but he was going to get us to school. A lot of time I would say, Uncle Elmer, I need to get off downtown. No, you ain't getting off downtown. It was a family thing, and it was good it was. A lot of us exist for the betterment of ourselves and our family because we had that push. B.F. Ford for me was a good experience, even though the teachers was on my case, and then I had a shorthand teacher in bookkeeping. One of my daughters went on to school and got in accounting. As a matter of fact, if we hadn't had such a push, we wouldn't have pushed our kids like we did. Integration was a wonderful thing too. It puts put everybody pretty much on the same level educational. And you can't stand in the way of progress. I had an aunt, she was a beautician in Detroit. She had bought a property and the school wanted to buy it. And ain't got true. At first she was in, you know, sort of turmoil because that was her first property after she moved from Mississippi. And she did not want to sell it. And then she decided, why stand in the way of progress? You know, things are not going to always stay the same. We realized that BF4, the country schools and so forth, that was just a stepping stone, a beginning. And you have to go forward if you're going to keep up. So it was nothing wrong with BF4, you know, but it was time to go forward. I came out in 65, 66.
67. Even though I'm the oldest, I had to stay out, you know.
I started to school early. When my mother sent her to school, she thought I needed to go too. Because when she would come home with her stuff, my dad would insist I learn to read and everything. And as a result of it, I made 2 grades in 1 year.
Did you have a nickname? You just said it a while ago.
Easygoing and Slim Jim. Yeah, and I hated it. But yeah, I didn't knock anything except Miss Gibson. She wanted me to sing in the choir. I hated choir. So finally, in about the 10th grade, she let me alone. Our mother had died shortly before I went into high school, and I had other issues to deal with, not just school. Yeah, so as a result of my personality, a lot of the kids, especially this girl, she used to worry me to death. Easygoing, why don't you do this? I wasn't one of those type of students that was peer pressured into doing stuff. Just leave me alone and I'll be all right. And I graduated, which was a very proud moment for my daddy because he had always said he wished he had more education.
Did you have a nickname?
What was your nickname, Polly?
Meanie.
What, Payne?
Mean. Because I wouldn't take a whole lot of stuff. I had to grow up quick from 14 until I just had to mature quick. I wouldn't take a lot of unnecessary junk.
Oh yeah, I still talk to one of them. She lives in, what is it, Water Valley? One of my friends, she was a beautiful girl, nice personality. Christine Price, and I'll never forget her. And then Pauline Young. I used to love them to death, yeah. Other kids, like if they said wear red and black today, I might decide I want to wear what color I want to wear. And don't be giving me no static because I didn't wear the right color. My dad would let us go to recreational activities. And then a lot of times, like I said, the church was very busy. And then we had a lot of family. I can't remember how many of, and we had cousins. Seemed like we always had company. And my mother and them was very generous. They, you know, it don't cost much to share, even now. My husband used to say, give away the house, Francis. No, I'm not going to give away the house. And shortly before he died, he says he was a kidney failure patient, and they had gave him 6 months to live. We were laying in the bed one night, and he said, baby, I said, what? What would you do if you had $1 million? I said, Robert, why are you asking me that? You know, we ain't got no million. He said, tell me what you would do. And I proceeded to tell him what I would do. And he said, you know what? You did just what I thought you would do. You would give away everything and keep very little for yourself. And that's, I probably would. I went on to name different individuals. I would do this and that for. He said, how you know they need it? I said, well, I don't, but that's exactly what I do. And you know what he said to me? You did just and said what I thought you would do. And I'm thinking, is this man dying, leaving some money he ain't telling me about? They do it, don't they?
They do.
But I got everything I need. I still got family. And I had a hard fall recently, ended me up. Sort of shut down for 2 months, but I've been staying with my sister almost a month, and I went to Bartlett and spent time with my daughters and my great-grand. I'm fine. I don't know. Of course, I probably would have spent it, but I got everything that's very important to people. I got enough of my health left to survive. That's what it's all about.
Well, that's how we was taught. That's how my mom and dad was. My mom would raise a garden, and she would plant different things, like even in the field, she would plant popcorn and all of that stuff, and watermelons. We didn't go hungry, and she would share. I remember one time, my brother talk about it now. When he see this, he gonna have a fit. But he had a friend lived across the road from us, down the road from us, a field or whatever. And he came to visit my brothers to play. And my brother was bragging how big a watermelon we had. And it was kind of in the fall of the year. And my mother said, well, since you're telling him about it, get it out and put it in the wagon and help him take it home. And my brother had to help him. His name was Hubert Spears. And he talk about that now. If he was here, he would be bumping me now. But I don't care. But that's how we was taught, to share what you got. And if you share, you'll be blessed. Not to brag, not to boast. We ain't got nothing to boast about. That was a lesson. And it was a lesson for me, too. When we was young, we used to have to churn, churn milk to make butter off. We would, mother, of course, we had to milk the cow first. We milked the cow. And I loved it. We lived on the farm. And mother would take that milk and let it set over and ferment, a clabber, a culture, or what you call it. And then she would put it in a churn. And we would churn it. And we churn and churn. And it'll float to the top. That was buttermilk. After we get the butter off of it. And we would have butter, and we would have the buttermilk, which we would eat milk and bread sometimes, but not often, because we had plenty of food to eat. When they started rioting, I was a little girl at Ole Miss. That was a horrible night for me. I asked my dad, I said, why are they doing that? And he told me, because they don't want, the whites don't want to be mixed with the blacks. Don't want the blacks to be mixed with the whites. And I said, I don't understand. Of course, I was young then. I didn't understand. But as I grew older, I really understood what he was telling me. It was true. They had a terrible riot down there. And not too long ago, a few years ago, since my grandson been down there, they was acting up down at Ole Miss, hanging nooses around the statues, and that's awful because it's true. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Because God wants us to be together. Together. Be as one.
Did that scare you?
Of course. Of course it did. They was hurting peoples of color. Mm-hmm. Not only talking about them and calling them names, and that's not right. And they was killing people just because of our color. And God made us all beautiful. We all are beautiful peoples. It's how we act and how people carry out things. And it's not right. It's not right. And I don't stand for it at all, being mistreated, I don't want my children to be mistreated. I think that's why my father protected us so much. He had been through some things. But whatever God wants to happen, He gonna fix it. That's why I changed my mind. When you asked me down here, I didn't want to. And then I thought about it, how far and we have come and how good, the school was at Ford. It taught us a lot of things. I just think back on it. I'm glad I made it to where I am now. To see all of this change, for my children, and some for the better, and some of it's still out of control. People just don't treat one another right. I'm gonna say it, especially peoples of color. We are not treated right. But one day, we all gonna be in the same place, because God is the real judge. It's just one race, and that's the human race.
I guess I was before my time. First, I wanted to get married at 17. After I graduated, my daddy told me after I graduated, he'll let me go. I graduated. I got a job at
Irby B. Swaby.
It used to be Irby B. Swaby Manufacturing Company. Then I saved my money, and I had an aunt lived in Elviston, Illinois. So I told my dad, I said, I'm ready to go. I've saved some money. He took me to the bus station. I saw him waving and crying, because I wasn't nothing but a kid. So after I got there, I'd always did pretty good in school. And so I wanted to go to Secretarial College, but I ran up against some obstacles, no money, no way to get funded, and so forth. So my aunt told me, apply for a job at Illinois Bell. I did. And I guess it was a gift from God. I'd always managed to score pretty high on stuff. And so I got a job working for Allstate Insurance in Skokie, Illinois, in the accounting department. Met a guy I fell in love that disrupted all my plans. No mother to tell me what to be on the guard for. And I had to detour back to Mississippi to stay with my dad. That's cutting it short, you know that. My daughter and I had a good life. I met a man, we got married, to cut it short, and we spent 48 years together. I lived in Shannon in Lee County. I lived in Union County for quite a while after I graduated. And then my husband, he was working. I was reading a story about Futuria manufacturing. And my husband started working for Futuria, and then he wasn't satisfied. I couldn't get him up out of bed early enough in the morning to punch the clock. And he said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to try being self-employed. So after that, to cut it short, we spent many, many years being self-employed. And we have cleaned carpet in Tennessee, all over Mississippi. It's been good to us. Mississippi was very good to us.
Did you ever leave?
No.
What
I
did you do when you
never
graduated?
left New Albany. When I graduated high school, I started to work at the shirt factory, which is Irby B. Swarby. And I stayed over there for about a year and a half, and I had got married before. And then after that, working over there for a while, I got pregnant with my beautiful daughter. I had to miss some time because she had gotten sick. And they fired me over the telephone. I didn't care. You know, I was interested in my child then. You know, I didn't care whether they fired me or not. My husband was working at Futuria, Masterbuilt. We made it. You know, we made it. And then after that, after the shirt factory, I went to Futorian, I think. I was a glaze person, wiping glaze off the paint. I mean, the paint off the chair arms, something kind of like that over there, that chair over there, and making sure it was correct, no runs or anything. And after that, I went to Tupelo to a job, and I hated that job, sewing. After that, I went to, I think I went to Denton Mills or somewhere. I was just moving all over. After that, I went to Piper's, where I stayed 24 years.
What area do you live in now?
I live close to Cotton Plant.
Presently, I'm in Shannon.
Me and my sister and my sister-in-law, we had a family reunion. Our cousin, he came from St. Louis to the reunion. I had never met him before. Come to find out, he was a doctor. So that means we as peoples, we can progress too. We can be doctors, lawyers. I told my girls they could be whatever they wanted to be, doctors, lawyers. We could have progressed earlier if the peoples had took their feet off of took their feet off of our neck and off of our bodies, holding us back. I'm a very intelligent person. We all are. God didn't make no dummies. My oldest brother, Homer, he went to Ole Miss, graduated Ole Miss, and he come back to New Albany and got married, and I tried to get him to go to Atlanta. No, I want to get married. So he got married, and he worked in the factory too. But factory is hard work sometimes, but it's honest money. Baby brother, Charles, he's a bishop at Holy Temple Church of God in New Albany. He worked in the factory too and ministered. Both of them went to the Army. Both of them served. I had to pray hard for them. My oldest brother, I couldn't sleep at night sometimes. And I didn't even know why. But I was praying, and the Lord said, pray for them. And my oldest brother, he said he just missed it, going to Vietnam. Just missed it by a hair. And then he got to come home after 3 years. And my baby brother, he went, I think he was in, I forgot where he was, but he didn't have to go to Vietnam either.
So
It was scary. It was scary for my brothers.
Yeah.
It was scary. And we had lost friends in Vietnam too. That was a war that we shouldn't have had to fight in. People's over there, white and black, sent us over there to fight a foreign country. And things was messed up over here. And when they come back, some of the soldiers were spit on and mistreated. Not only the white, a lot of soldiers were mistreated when they come back to the United States. So that's not right.